Okay, good. It's recording. There's a lot of information, and I was no kind of expert, not at all, when I started this journey. So, what I did was I took a course, and the overall what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to give you in a JPEG. So I'll send it to you so that the overall conversation you will have in one form if you want to use it as a guidance. But then you'll also be able to refer back to this whenever you feel like it. So when I began this journey, and that was probably when I started thinking about this, I was getting close to retiring. I don't know if you guys know what my past was. I did a lot of things when my kids were little, but I began my life as a teacher. And when I knew I was heading towards retirement, my daughter had suggested, just came out with this, and there have been a lot of other ideas that I wanted to go through, but I didn't. And I'm trying to see your questions. Okay, good. I can see everything on the side there. So I really thought this was a great idea, because when you say cats to me, I immediately get real happy. And then you say coffee and you say dessert, and I don't know anything else in the world exists. So I knew that this was going to be the perfect vacation for me. But I didn't know how to run this kind of business. I had been a direct seller. I sold premier design jewelry, so I did have some experience in that area. I did it as supplemental income, and I like people, so I knew that this was going to be right for me. So I took a course from someone who had opened a cat cafe. It was a several course series, and when it ended, all the pitfalls that she lightly talked about, I was sure wouldn't happen to me. Let me assure you, you will hit every one of them and many more of your very own. You need grit and dreams to make this happen. The first thing that you have to do, beyond the shadow of a doubt, is make a business plan. You have to get it down on paper. There's going to be many drafts, but you have to start with something. You have to start with the first step so that you can begin to move forward. There are many sites, including the SBA, that has templates, like boilerplate templates. And you can add any line item to it that you want. One of them that you might want to consider is kitty litter, because boy, that's a big expense in this world. Your first will be really just ideas so that you can get your arms around what you're thinking about. And then you need to do a lot of research. And I researched for over a year, and I am not talking location, because I could do an entire seminar on locations, but I will touch on it tonight. And so I will talk about location, because that is a paramount thing in most people's minds, besides money. After you draft your idea into a preliminary business plan or dream board, if you're like a real creative mind like that, maybe a dream board is a better place for you to begin. I'm that personality called a sanguine, which I just want to have fun. I don't want to do the work. Don't make me do the work. I don't want to do the work, but you got to do the work. Once you get this dream board, however, if you're a very analytical person, if you want to do spreadsheets, or however you want to begin this process so that you can start thinking through the entire thing, that's the way you should do it. And you have to get this idea into like a 15-second snippet or less, because once you start saying you're going to do this, even though that cat cafes are more popular now, people are going to go, eh? So you have to be able to explain it. And after about 15 seconds, people are going, yeah, I have to go and do this, and I still have to clean the bathroom. So you have to get your idea into a concise statement so that people don't think you're stark raving mad. Once you formulate a business plan, then you have to start thinking about money, because money is everything. The How do you plan to fund it? This is so critical. And even if you plan to borrow it from a friend or a family member, you have to have a plan. And for them, that plan is, how you pay me back. It's for a bank or an investor, you still need that plan. There's no skipping that step. It doesn't matter if it's your mother. She still wants to know, how am I getting my money back? In official terms, it's called your financial projection. That you also need a quick snippet for, because I'm going to suggest, if you get further into this process, that you go to many of the functions that Small Business Association offers you. And they have many lenders there who, if you have a great idea, they're very eager to lend you money. So you have to be able to present your ideas and your need for your money and how you're going to give them back their money in less than a minute, because that's about all you got. During the process of your financial projection, you must have a line item for everything, and that includes rent. If you're planning, to give you an idea how involved the money gets, if you're planning to spend, say, $2,000 a month for rent, you're going to need first month, last month, current month. So right off the bat, you have $6,000. You haven't even started with contractor fees, permits, inspection, and a whole host of pre-expenses. And this is where you really work to make your dream come alive, even though it is the very last thing that you want to think about. This is what brings it to life, because you're thinking of every nook and cranny of what you want to do, hopefully, with the rest of your life. Now, let's touch on location. I made some notes to myself to keep myself focused on location. They say location, 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 and it means in more ways than where's it at. There are two factors of location, which are direct competition and indirect competition. Obviously, direct competition, another cat cafe, or even so much as even like a dog cafe or something like that. Indirect would be a coffee shop. And Starbucks has a lock on a lot of areas. Not so much with Dunkin' Donuts, obviously, I'm right behind a Dunkin' Donuts, but a Starbucks can have a 5-mile radius, believe it or not. 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, not pretty common with Starbucks. And the other dangerous mistake that you can make is putting it too close to direct competition, because your idea may be absolutely incredible and so much better than your direct competition, but they have a fan base and they have experience. So be very careful where you decide to plop yourself down. And you have to think about foot traffic. Can you get to it in bad weather? You have live animals that need to be cared for each and every day. If you're serious, you have to make sure you talk with other tenants to find out what life is like in that particular area that you're thinking about putting your business. And it doesn't matter what business you're going into, you really need to check out your areas. And finally, what's most important with the location, are you going to be happy there? I kind of think if you land in a spot that you're not going to be happy in, that's going to make you miserable to get to every day, not saying that the actual spot isn't bad, but if you're going to be eating yourself up alive inside with knots in your stomach about, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to get to work today? I would say pick a different spot. Okay, so when I began my journey, I began with notebooks because I usually put everything on a piece of paper and then can't find a piece of paper. So I decided that I was going to do notebooks. And I don't know if you can see this. Can you see what that says? That says Me Wow Book 1, which means there was more than one. So then I created my business plan. This is my business plan, which if you want a copy, I'm happy to share it with you. There's no secrets there. And then what I wanted you to see is that I still work on it. This is my most recent projections, a 7-month and a 10-month projection. I hate doing this, but you have to do it. And that's it, is that you have to begin with a first step. And that first step is to think about it, and think about it a lot. Keep a pad of paper next to your bed. And when you have an idea, write it down. A lot of people asked about many of the things that I did within Me Wow and why I did them. Most things were seat of the pants, and turned out really well. And things that didn't turn out well, I changed quickly. You have to be adaptable. I know that as I went through the series of 4 courses with the person who had the Cat Cafe, it really was very helpful. I mean, unbelievably helpful. So learning how to open up a cat cafe is not a 20-minute course. It is a real investment in time. But I can tell you, it is a wonderful thing to have, because I am always happy when I am at Me Wow. I am very unhappy right now not being at Me Wow. But I shouldn't complain to you, because I know you're not any happier than I am these days. But we all have to do what we have to do. And I don't want anybody to be sick. But we are starting to prepare it for reopening. We're starting to follow all the guidelines. And by the end of next week, hopefully the place will be fully compliant to open June 4th. Woohoo! I'm hoping we go to yellow. Okay, so I know I handed you a lot of information that you probably didn't want to think about, but it is the things you need to think about first. So now I would welcome you to unmute and open up your cameras. And if we can do this where you just ask me and I answer, I'll be good with it. But if we're finding we're having a little bit of difficulty with this, I'll say, all right, put your question on chat so I can answer it. So feel free to undo yourselves. Hello. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Okay, so hello. Do you have questions?
Yeah, I do. So I was listening about your business plan. So I've been doing some research, and actually I just drafted my first round of my business plan. It's kind of like a general run. I did that a couple weeks ago. So now I'm kind of stuck. I don't know kind of what the next step is. Like, I don't know, I mean, I've researched my city and state regulations, but I don't know, do I start looking for a location, or do I figure out my city regulations first, or do I talk to the Humane Society? I'm not sure kind of what the next step is after that.
Okay, where are you located?
I'm in Florida.
In Florida, okay. Boy, I would say begin to look for location because you have to do money. So
Mhm.
you have to start figuring out how much different areas are.
Okay.
And the other thing that I would suggest, if you say, okay, I know I want to name a city that would be of interest to you so that I do personalize
I
this.
actually live kind of in a small town, but do you know where Jupiter, Florida is,
Yeah.
or West Palm Beach? So I live like 30 minutes from Jupiter.
Okay. So if you say, you know what, I think I want to land in Jupiter.
Mhm.
Start contacting realtors, find out how much space is. And when you're allowed to go and meet with the whoever runs, we have like commissioners and things like that in Pennsylvania. Go to whatever public office that your municipality would be for Jupiter and sit down and talk to people because you're going to get their temperature really quick.
Mhm.
I landed in an area called Buckingham, and anybody who knows Buckingham, like, oh, they're tough, there's no black and white, there's no gray areas. I got to tell you, black and white is so much better than gray. It's like if you don't know where that target is that you're trying to hit because they keep changing the rules on you, it's next to impossible. So my advice is yes, start checking out space. And just because it's on, gosh, I can't even remember the site that I would just constantly look at for space. Realtors, no. And I'm going to tell you something that's the truth. And this is not going to be something happy that you're going to hear.
Mhm.
But it is a very chauvinistic world in renting business space. It is just, I could tell you stories and you would absolutely slap me saying I'm lying.
No,
Uh,
I've actually been thinking about this for like 2 years now, and about 6 months ago, I was looking at locations, and I was calling places and asking about prices and space wise, and they were like, "Oh, well, what's it for?" And I tried to explain it, and people were so rude about it, and I'm like, you know, and I'm a sensitive person, so that's going to be another big struggle. Is I'm so sensitive, and I want people to like the idea as much as I do, so that I know I already have a little bit of
that 15-second snippet that you have down that you can say backward and forward.
that.
So there's the proof to that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hit on a question for somebody? Did I scare you?
You kind of touched on this a little bit, but for location, you mentioned like foot traffic and things like that. What do you suggest taking that into account when you're looking at locations?
Well, foot traffic is very, very important. But if you're in an area that is very foot traffic, that's cute and quaint and all that other stuff, you pull up two issues. Your rent's going to be absolutely enormous, but I don't know what your budget is, so I'm not sticking my hand in your pocket. And also parking. So, I mean, I would have loved to be in Doylestown proper. That would have been fabulous, except nobody knew what a cat cafe was, and they were making my life absolutely miserable. So I said, all right, I'm going to start working in other areas. I signed 12 leases. I didn't look at 12 locations. I looked at 47, but I signed 12 leases before this went through. Before the realtor, who was a guy, said to me, no way. And I said, and he was the property manager. I said, would you please mention it to the owner? Well, the owner was a woman who likes cats and said to him, make it happen. So when I had that, even though my location is a little bit rough, not as far as it's not great foot traffic, but there's this little sandwich shop that does a ton of business. There's a running store. There's a carpet place. And there is a Wawa going in just a few yards down. So I can't wait for that. That is going to so help me. So those quaint little honky tonks, if you've got the budget, great, go for it. But if you say, well, do I have $5,000 a month for rent for 1,000 square feet? Or can I spend $1,000 for 2,000 square feet. So you have to decide which way you're going to go with that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? No questions. Wow. Did I make you think?
Oh yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And it just begins to touch on it. But that's fine because this isn't easy. And if you're serious, it is worth every bit of the effort. And I can tell you personally, it is worth it.
Mhm. Did you, are you paired with like a local coffee shop, or did you like build it out in your facility?
I did, this is funny. This is how I chose my coffee. I went to a coffee and tea show and I decided the ones that I thought was best. Actually, I went with my mommy and we brought home all these bags of coffee and I brewed up about the same middle type coffees of 4 different coffees. And I had everybody rank their coffees. Number 1 was pretty much everybody's was different, but number 2 was the same exact one for everybody. So I knew that was the right coffee. And everybody who comes in, has it any of you guys been to Me Wow? Anybody you
No.
guys? No? Did you like the coffee when you were there? Did you have coffee?
I didn't have coffee.
You didn't have coffee? Okay. And my tea, did you have tea?
No.
No tea? Okay, my tea was from a different company. It's a single stay-at-home mom and her teas are just, it's called OUTs. She's on Etsy. She's absolutely fabulous. So that's how I chose my coffee. And I love my coffee. I love coffee.
I honestly, I don't actually even drink coffee, but so that's going to be a little difficult too.
Well, you don't have to serve coffee. If you want to serve tea, this is your place. This is your idea. It's your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I did have a question. Do you actually make enough of a profit to actually be able to, keep going on your own, or do you really need a lot of money, like backup money?
Well, right now, having 0 income since March 14th.
Yeah, I know this is not a good time to ask that question, probably.
So I self-funded. That's what I chose to do. I self-funded, and then I did an Indiegogo platform. I did crowdfunding. I actually didn't make a lot of money on crowdfunding. My plan was to have everything paid back within 2 years. So I had managed to, where was I at the point that I closed? I had paid myself back about $6,000, and my credit card debt, which I put everything on because I wanted points, because that was another whole area, was the credit card and buying your supplies and all that other stuff. I had paid back about $4,000, and that was within the first 7 months. And when you open, there's so much that you don't realize you need and that you have to fix and all this other stuff that you're just laying money out hand over fist, and you just say, by the grace of God, I'm going to get this back. My 2-year plan is probably not realistic at this point because I have to pay 100% of everything on about 25% of capacity. And that's the reality of it. So how do I juggle this? I don't know. I'm figuring this out just like everybody else who the only people that are closed are small business. Everybody else is open, but small business is closed because the virus only comes to small businesses and not big businesses. But we won't go there. So I would say yes, or have a really good credit card that you can you can live off of, and you can live. Some people can't live in debt, which is really not my comfort area, but you have to learn to live there because you own a business. Are you thinking
Okay.
of self-funding, Kim?
Well, I don't, I'm not really sure. Like, I was just curious if, and that's another thing. I think there's two different types of businesses. I think I've heard this, that you can have either profit or nonprofit. So which would you suggest, or I'm not sure.
Are you going to have coffee and food?
Prop, that's the way I was thinking. Yes.
Well, you're for profit, honey, because you can't
Okay.
be a nonprofit with food. So
Oh,
that's the way it works. Mhm.
okay. But I guess then there is, so if you don't do food, and then you can you can do a nonprofit then.
Unless you're going to give away the stuff, that's. I mean, you could do
Is
it.
that how it goes into, like, people will have, like, you get a complimentary coffee with your fee for coming in type thing, and then it can be a nonprofit?
It depends on where you are, and there's a lot of things that are different. A nonprofit, and the other reason why I did not go 501c, it is so regulated. And I preferred partnering with agencies to bring the cats in, to give myself flexibility. I did not want to have to be the one who found the cats, cared for the initial things. Of course, I care for the cats. We do treat sick cats there. We have a back area with sick cages. If we can keep the cats there, we do. But the ultimate responsibility I wanted to be with somebody else, especially for the adoption and all that other stuff. So I made my decisions based on what was best for me. And that is another whole thing, is who you're partnering with. And that was going to be a whole different seminar, is where you get your cats from. Okay, so there's 2 more questions, because I promised not to keep you past 7:30, so I'm trying to be good. Anybody else? I see an EDU there. Are you a teacher?
A student.
Oh, okay. All right. All righty. Well, if there are no more questions, you're always welcome to mail me your questions. And